Welcome to For the Love of Books, Bees Books Edition, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries.
Hello, this is Pari.
And this is Jenny, and we're here to talk about
Bees Books. Well, I am very giddy today for many reasons. So it might make sense in my head what I say, but it will not make sense out of my mouth. So Jenny, good luck with that.
I will try and interpret if we need to. Yes, it'll be fine.
Maybe I can make like actions to go alongside on an audio medium. That would be really
It's probably
helpful.
just as well sometimes if people can't see us when we're recording.
That
I know
is-
that a lot of radio stations now, like you can go on and watch.
Yes.
Which I think is horrific.
I agree.
Yes, because I think if you're going to work and you're thinking that you're just doing something behind the scenes, you're not going to wear the same kind of stuff that you would have to wear if you're going to be on screen.
Oh, do you think so?
Yes, I think if I was doing a radio programme, I would just turn up in my sort of comfy clothes.
Hmm.
Whereas if you knew that somebody was actually going to see you, I think you'd turn up in more smarter clothes.
I don't think,
No?
you know how there's that phrase, you have a face for radio? I think like you have an outfit for radio. Actually, no, see, that does not make sense. In my head, I was like, I don't think it should matter
Mhm.
what you wear because it'll be the same because you're wearing it in public anyway.
Mhm.
But I see what you mean by wanting to be smarter, but I never want to be smart in my life.
You'd be quite happy.
I'd be quite happy.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because I would never watch it.
No.
So once it's out in the world, it's,
That's
I don't
true.
care.
Anyway, our theme this week is not fashion.
No, it is not. It could have been.
Could have been.
But yes,
But it is dancing.
dancing.
And I'm interested to see what you've got for dancing.
Well, I have two books,
Mhm.
as opposed to your million.
Yes.
So the first one is Villette by Charlotte Bronte, which is one of her lesser known works, I think,
Mhm.
because the only other popular book is Jane Eyre.
Mhm.
And I have just finished reading this chunky book.
It is a chunky
It's
book.
quite chunky and it took me a long time to read it.
Mhm.
And the other book I have still not read, finished reading, as you can see by my bookmark. I have 4 chapters to go.
Mhm.
It's called Ballet Shoes
Oh,
by Noelle Streatfeild. See, the spelling of her last name is out to trick you.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Streatfeild.
Yeah, you think it's going to say one thing and then it's
Yes.
spelled in another way.
I very much like the cover of that. I'm not sure about the cover of your other book.
Isn't it beautiful? Well, actually, the vibe of this cover totally matches the vibe of the book.
Oh, okay.
Make of that as you will. It's a classic. It was written in 1853 or somewhere thereabouts, but so is this other one. It was written between the wars.
Oh, it was actually
Two
written
wars.
between or
I think, or it was no, it was written, but so
Oh.
it came out in 1936.
Oh,
So both are
there you go.
old-timey books.
Now I can see that Ballet Shoes absolutely dancing,
Mhm.
but the other one she is sitting. Oh no, I thought that was a piano she was sitting at.
It is not. It is a writing desk.
Oh,
Because she is a righty person.
Okay.
A righty person. She is a righty person.
excellent.
Yes, it is because so all the characters in this book, as well as the narrative of this book, dances to their own tune.
Oh, fabulous! You've obviously thought of that.
I have. They're a bunch of lunatics, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. What about your book?
Well, I have 4. Pari.
Oh,
And the reason that I've squashed them all in is
Yeah.
because I am dancing with joy that
Oh.
I have managed to read quite a lot recently.
Ah.
So I felt as if I was kind of not reading as much. I was reading kind of chunky books, which were taking a long time to read. And I've managed to read 3 of these. Now, 3 of them are junior books, but one of them is an adult book, so I shall tell you.
yeah.
So the first one is book 4
Ah.
in the Scarlet and Ivy series by Sophie Cleverly, The Lights Under the Lake. My other book is called
Oh.
Malamander by Thomas Taylor.
You said it in a very like you're going to curse somebody.
Well, yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then we've got another Emma Carroll,
Ah.
Secrets of a Sun King.
I love that cover.
Beautiful,
Very intrigued.
Isn't it? Yes. And then my other book is an adult book. It's a science fantasy book, and it's called Children of Earth and Sky by, and this is another tricky one to say out loud because in your
Good
head,
luck.
Guy Gabriel K.
I think that sounds fine.
Yes, I managed that. Okay.
Yeah.
And as I say, some of them do have also a dancing thing in them.
Mhm.
But overall, it is because I'm dancing with joy that I have read as many.
Yeah, that is a fantastic lot of books. Charlotte Bronte unfortunately got in the way of me reading as many because I've been reading this for such a long time.
Mhm.
But since you have 4 books, start with the one that made you dance for joy the most.
Oh.
Mm.
Okay. I'm going to go with Scarlet and Ivy. I think
Okay.
they all made me dance equally.
I feel
to
like
be
you're being
fair.
diplomatic, like
Yeah.
being forced to choose your favorite child. You know you have a
Yes.
favorite,
Yeah.
but you're trying to say, no, I love everybody equally.
That's exactly it.
Mm.
So I've spoken about Scarlet and Ivy before. They're twins. It's set between the wars in a kind of boarding school for girls. Right up your street, totally up your street. This one, book 4, they're a wee bit. It doesn't seem to do by year, so like the Robin Stevens books, that every book is a different year.
Yes.
This isn't quite like that, but it's a new term at least.
Right.
And because there has been things happening at the school recently, in books 1 to 3, with crazy headmasters and murder and mystery and things like that. The new headmistress decides that because a lot of the girls are pulling out of the school, a lot of the parents are taking them out, thinking the place is, a bad place to be. She's trying to kind of encourage people that actually it's a good place, etc., etc. So she decides to take some of them on a school trip, to this hotel, and of course things happen at the hotel. It appears to be slightly haunted.
Oh.
And the hotel is set in this kind of place where a village has been sunk underwater. And we've talked about that in one of the other Emma Carroll books. And Strathclyde Park, for example, there used to be a village there and they needed to put the water in. So a dam has been built in this old village. A lot of people from the village just moved away, but the village is still underneath the water, underneath the lake. So there's still a church, there's still these kind of things. But in the hotel, some of the things from the village turn up in the hotel. Like, so some candlesticks from the church, a soggy wet book of hymns, I think it was, and things like that just start appearing. It appears some of the pictures kind of move round as well, and it's just like an adventure-packed book. It's just brilliant, and because of the way that the book is written, so one chapter is Scarlet and one chapter is Ivy, and they are very much different personalities for all that they're twins. It's a great kind of, like, the two of them act really well together, and like sometimes you're on Scarlett's side, who's the kind of slightly rebellious one, and sometimes you're on Ivy's side because you're like, no, actually that rule is in place for a reason, because drowning, that kind of a thing, and it's just a great book, and as I say, because I've managed to read it quite quickly because I wasn't reading anything else at the time, I really enjoyed it because I read it not quite in one go, but almost in one go. And it's just brilliant.
Do you think after the first book, because I remember you talking about the first book, would it work as a standalone series? Not a standalone series. I mean, like, would you be able to just pick up this book?
No, because of what's happened in book 1 with Scarlet missing and what has actually happened to her, not trying to give anything away there. Some of the stuff is relevant to this book, so she's scared of small spaces, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And you know why if you've read the first book. I mean, I suppose you could. I would say always read books in order.
Yeah.
But no, this book especially, I feel as if because you're coming out of the school because of things that have happened, if you don't know what's happened, you're not aware of why, if you see what I mean. There are some more kind of not grown up issues in this, but older issues. There's some bullying in it, and things like that, that weren't really there in the first few. They were there, but not as strongly, if you see what I mean. But it's built up to that. So by reading other books, you can see why that's happening. There's also a girl who has appeared from one of the earlier books for one reason or another. And if you don't know her backstory, you're not quite sure why she fits into this story. So yes, I would definitely say read the previous books, but just because they're fun.
Yes.
But yes, so that's my first book.
That's definitely on my list because it, like you say, it sounds absolutely down my street, up my alley. I don't know what the phrase is. I have lost control of my words. Well, this book is also set in a school, Villette. So Villette is the name of a fictional town, but it is kind of like a mix between Belgium and France.
I was just going to say it sounds kind of French.
Yeah, and there's a lot of French in the book, but it's a very autobiographical book, apparently. It's based on Charlotte Bronte's time. I think she spent a year or so in Belgium as a teacher, in the same way that our protagonist here, Lucy Snow, she's a teacher in this town of Villette, which has influences from both Belgium and France, but it doesn't matter. This is a really helpfully annotated version of the book. So if you want to know more about the things that are said, and if you want the translation of the French, you can look at the notes. If it doesn't matter to you, you can just go on with it. So it starts off with Lucy Snow, and it's told from her first person point of view. And she is a very depressed, lonely, isolated, a really, really sad person. Yes. But she's also a very unreliable narrator. So she doesn't give away a lot of her, she talks a lot about the things she observes and the people and things, but she also gets in her own head a lot about it. And I think now she would be diagnosed with clinical depression and the NHS would throw some antidepressants her way. In that time, no, not so much. She just needs some friendship and some company. Unfortunately, her family has all died. So she's alone in the world, no prospects, no money. So she has to make her own way in the world.
And at that time, as a woman especially.
Exactly. It's difficult, especially, I think, because she was not working class, she was middle class. So for middle class people, women, there was a very specific kind of job that you could do. You could be a governess, you could be a teacher. I think that's it.
That's it, yeah.
That's all you could be. So you're too sort of genteel for the kind of working class jobs that you would do, but you have to have food and have a house. So you have to. So she tries. There's a couple of false starts with things that she thinks that she's going to do, and it doesn't work out. In the end, she ends up in a French/Belgian village of Villette. And first she starts off as a nursemaid kind of for the principal or headmistress's children, but then she becomes a teacher. She becomes the English teacher. And the head, again, this whole school is packed full of complete weirdos, complete lunatics. And the way she writes about them, so it's a very weird vibe of this book, because it is sometimes really intense, oh God, she's sad, she's never going to be happy again, she just resists happiness at every turn. And at the others, it's really funny because of the way that she writes about, and the way that it's set is that she's an older lady writing about her past.
Right.
So she has more knowledge now than so she's this omniscient narrator of her own life, but she's writing these internalized sort of monologues and observations. Some of them are correct, some of them are not. Some of them she's hiding from the reader, what she knows and what she doesn't. So in the middle, it's divided into 3 volumes, and at the end of the first and the beginning of the second, there's a twist, and I'm oh, right, you are hiding that there, Lucy. But it's not a twisty, turny kind of book. It's a very, I think, a book of that time, those old timey books, that it has a little bit of everything. So it has drama, it has potentially haunted. It's potentially haunted by a nun. It has a lot of Catholicism versus Protestantism because of the time that it was set in, I think. And it also has 2 men that she has complicated feelings for. And a bit of again, so that's what I mean by dancing on her tune. First of all, the character, complete weirdo. All the people she's surrounded by, the headmistress is this excellent MI6 surveillance kind of person who knows everything about everyone. will go through people's things when she thinks that they're not
Oh.
there and stuff. But Lucy is like one up on her, and she quite admires her. She's like, oh, she knows everything that's she's running a tight ship, and this is how she does it. Well, okay then, that's fine. There's like a weird priest. There's a weird. There's one of the friends that she makes. Well, friends, I use the term loosely. She is also like a very strange girl, Geneva. First of all, her name is Geneva, who is quite silly person, but in an entertaining fashion. So
Okay.
her feelings about people, she holds very close to her chest. She's pretty cold outwardly, but like we see her inner monologue is like all over the place. And the sort of narrative as well, she is so there was an essay in the beginning which I read at the end because I didn't want spoilers, and it seems like she really wrote counter to the sort of trend of novels at the time,
Mhm.
which a lot of women, I think, writers sort of struggle to do as well. For example, Little Women,
Mhm.
where she didn't want Joe. Louisa May Alcott didn't want Joe, who was the character who most represented her, to have a happy ending, to
Mhm.
have this kind of marriage and whatever that other people were writing about, but the publisher pressured her.
Mhm.
So in this, it was similar. She didn't want it to end with like this happy marriage plot kind of thing. So the end is really ambiguous. I think it's a very
Oh.
tragic end,
Oh.
but there are like it could be read differently
Mhm.
from like so there are still debates about it how it ends, but it's really interesting. So it wasn't I think people would struggle with this book, a lot of people,
Which is probably why it's not as well known.
well known. And because I think Jane Eyre, even though there's like sort of mad things happening in
Yeah.
that as well, it's still a pretty conventional kind of narrative, whereas this feels a little more experimental, especially like the first person perspective, all the weirdnesses that there are, the not being able to there's this one chapter where she's like on this drug fueled sort of like this voyage of discovery.
Oh.
She didn't drug herself. She was
Okay.
drugged by this headmistress
Okay.
for various reasons. And yeah, I know exactly. It's really difficult to describe.
It sounds like some of the characters are more caricatures rather than like bigger than life, if you see what I
Yes,
mean.
but also contrarily, they're also really realistic.
Mhm.
So that's also a really strange thing. You're like, oh, this is like absolute mad behavior, but then also, oh, actually, I've met like completely like irrational people. There's also one of her love interests who is like the kind of flirting question mark that they do is mad. It's completely mad. It made me laugh so much because it was first of all the old-timey language, but also the framing of it was like, I think both of you need a hobby. Or yeah, so it was a fun experience for me,
Mhm.
even though it was not always an easy experience.
Okay.
It was sometimes really frustrating, especially the whole Catholics versus Protestants. And she has a very definite, oh, yay, Protestants, hooray. Whereas one of her love interests is Catholic, and like there's this whole thing. She's very dismissive of like the Pope and all this. And I was like, oh, this seemed to be a really big thing at the time. And there's also like she gets too deep in her own head about things which you're not really used to reading in that way.
Yeah.
Or maybe you are, the kinds of books that you read. But sort of knowing the wider context around it, the fact that she wrote a lot of herself into this character, and also that she like really resisted the conventional narrative forms. So I would struggle to recommend it wholeheartedly because I think some people would struggle with this book. But what really worked in my favor is on Goodreads. So I log all my books on Goodreads. And when I read a few reviews of it, like just to get the vibe, because I had no idea what I was getting into with this book. I just wanted to read like a chunky classic book just to get like to read something out of my comfort zone a little bit. But also it's like set in a school and things and like I
So
was like
still familiar.
a little bit familiar, although it didn't end up being familiar at all. But because of all this haunted nun business and like just mad things. But there was this one reviewer in particular who I think a few years ago she made it like as her project as well to read it. Like she was reading a chapter a day, but she did this really fun thing where she would put her sort of like a non-spoiler summary, like a couple of lines after each chapter. So the review was basically her feelings and things, and she's really funny. So she was like, so it felt almost like a companion reading, even though she doesn't know I exist. But every time I finished reading a chapter, I would go and see what she thought of this. So that was really fun for me because she took it, I think you could read it in a way that makes all the characters seem really horrible, including Lucy Snow, like, because they're not easy characters. They're not like, a protagonist or an antagonist. They're all a bit in the middle somewhere. They all have like good and bad and whatever. But so you could read it as a romance, you could read it as like this sort of anti-hero, whatever. But she made it like, oh, it's not so serious. It's like it's fun, or it's like it's serious in bits, but it was having a fun reading companion, I feel. So I'm gonna follow her other reviews and see if I can find other books that she's commented on. But I think if you're okay with like sticking with something, even though it doesn't make it easy for you, because she doesn't make it. Lucy Snow is like, I don't care if anybody reads this book. I am saying my life story to you. You want to know about it, don't know about it. I'm not going to make it easy for you. So if you're okay with that she's not a very inviting narrator, I think you would have a fun experience too. And the end, you might like. For me, it was very clearly tragic. But I don't know who these people are kidding themselves with. Like it's a happy ending and things. But if you do think that, I wish I was in your brain space. But I think the tragedy of the ending makes it more interesting as well, like because the fact that she's again resisting this conventional tidy ending. So she wanted to deliberately make it a tragic ending, but her publisher sort of strong-armed her into like, at least, come on, please. So she make it ambiguous, give some hope in the reader's heart if they are so inclined. So yeah, so it was quite a fun project.
Oh, right, okay. I don't think you've sold it to me, although I do enjoy Jane Eyre. It's one of the few books that I've read a few times.
Yes.
But yeah.
It's because, so it's not as easy as Jane Eyre because there's so many weird things that come in the way, and there's like lots of like references back to the things, and you're meeting all these people and you're encountering all these events and things, and you're like, what is happening? Because at some point, and I was like, I don't understand what is going on, but I stuck with it, and some bits were so funny and so like, oh, is this the same writer? Is this the same book? Like, what's going on? So it's not easy, but I'm still really happy that I read it. So that's how I'm sort of like selling it.
Okay.
Like it's an experience. It's like a trip. Not a drug trip, except for that one chapter. But
which
it's
does
quite
intrigue me actually.
Yes,
so,
it's quite, and there were a lot of discoveries happening. It was towards the end as well, so it was very strange. That the whole thing very strange. Would recommend.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough.
What about your the book that you made you dance least for joy now? The least favorite of your children. The one who really annoys you.
There isn't one.
Oh,
I'm going to
that is what a mom would say.
I'm going to talk about two of them.
Okay.
So, Secrets of the Sun King.
Yeah.
Emma Carroll. So recently spoke about the book that she wrote, which I cannot remember the name of. Pari.
Oh, you're looking at the wrong person for help. Yes.
But she kind of writes historical fiction for juniors. And you can tell basically this is going to be about Egypt. So again, it's kind of, it doesn't really, London 1922. So this girl, who I've forgotten the name of, Lillian, is her grandfather seems to be quite big into antiques and things like that. And this is around about the time when everything was happening in Egypt with the tombs and things like that. We've got Howard Carter, Lord something unpronounceable, Carnarvon, no, all kind of like, opening up these tombs. Now, obviously, now looking back, that shouldn't have happened the way it did. But at the time, there were some people that were against it. But there was more people who
Yeah,
wanted in.
it was a big, grand old adventure.
Yes, yes. So we're in London with Lillian, whose grandfather has just become very ill, and she goes to feed the cat, I think it is, and there's a package. So she takes the package home, opens it, turns out it's like a canopic jar. I think that's how you would say it.
Yeah.
So there's a big story behind it, and it's just one of those lovely books that is slightly familiar if you're into that kind of thing, but puts a new twist on it. So basically it's about Tutankhamun, and we hear about his life as just a boy rather than the boy king, with all the politics that surrounded that. So obviously, if you know anything about it, he had, I think it was an uncle who basically didn't want him to rule. He died tragically young. They're still not quite sure how he died, that kind of a thing. But we're learning about him from letters from his friend, basically. And basically it turns into a big adventure. Lily meets these other two kids while she's in a museum looking at something. The girl who, again, sorry, I've forgotten the name, I should write these things down, goes to the same school as her, but she's kind of picked on at school, so she doesn't go very often. Lillian's never really come across her at school. They become firm friends, and then they go on an adventure, and it's brilliant because the friend's mum is a journalist, female journalist, again at that time, not really, she's usually in the society, things like that, but she wants to be a proper reporter. She wants to go to Egypt and like report on what's happening there, tell both sides of the story, that kind of thing. So they finagle a way for them all to get sent to Egypt for the job. However, they've made all that up so that they can return this jar to where they think it should be, because basically Grandpa seems to have become very ill when this jar has been resurfaced. And they think it's to do with the curse, this big curse that everybody spoke about at the time. So they have to try and get this where it's going to go. At the same time, avoiding all the actual dig that's happening. They see some things that are happening that shouldn't be happening. And I'm trying not to give too much away, so I'm being very vague. But it was just a wonderful adventure story. It's like if you maybe took Indiana Jones and put him as an 11-year-old, that had that kind of feel about it. And I love that whole kind of ancient Egypt feel of things. I would have loved to have been there at the time, just as a observer, to see them opening these things up and seeing things. Then I would have wanted to shout at them and say, no, don't take all these things away and put them around the world, keep them where they should be. But it was just, I think Emma Carroll writes so well of that kind of historical time, whether, because she does all different types. She just obviously does loads of research and she knows her stuff. And although it's a children's book, it doesn't feel like she's writing just to children. It feels like she's writing to somebody who's interested in that subject anyway. Yeah. And the fact that she puts a slightly different slant on it, we don't really know about I can't remember the nickname that they give Tutankhamun, but we don't really know about his friends and things like that. But even then, the world that she builds of that time is very believable. You can absolutely believe that he would be friends with these people, and that what they're doing is kind of slightly parallel to now what's happening in 1922. And yeah, just a wonderful book. This did make me dance actually a wee bit with joy itself. And it's got a good ending. It's got a satisfying ending. We know what happened in the past. We know that, he died young and things like that. But this kind of, you feel satisfied at the end of it, and you realise that Lillian's now not alone like she was before. That she's got some friends, and it kind of follows on from the ancient friends, if you know what I mean. So yeah, a really good book, and I would absolutely recommend Emma Carroll any of her books. Now I'm working my way through them slowly, but yeah, just really good.
Isn't that fantastic when you find an author who you've not encountered before, and then you love her or him, and then you just discover this whole sort of canon that you have to look forward to.
Exactly. I heard her name mentioned on the radio the other day. and forgive me because I can't remember what wonderful person it was that was talking, but they had just written a children's book, and they were saying that they got like kind of, you know, helpful pointers from people like Emma Carroll, Michael McPurgo, by reading their stories and
Yeah.
kind of, you know, because she's like that, like Michael McPurgo, kind of writing about historical things, if you know what I mean, but making it more accessible to folk now.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. So even though there's the ancient story, and then the story that's running along is 1922, which is still like 100 years ago, you still feel something in common with them, if you know what I mean.
I feel also like this book that you talked about has series potential, because especially if the person is a journalist and this specific thing was set in Egypt, but there were a lot of things happening at that time that the British Empire had like its firm hands
Yes.
in. So it could be like different kinds
No,
of adventures and
absolutely.
journeys.
I mean, it was a wonderful standalone book, but if these characters came back again, I would definitely read it. I'm sure the mum's, I want to say she's American as well, which kind of put an even slightly different
Yeah.
kind of, you know, look on it, because
Yeah.
she was seeing it from that side. But no, it just I'm definitely a big fan of Emma Carroll.
Oh, that's excellent.
I'm also a big fan of this.
Oh.
So, Malamander, which I love doing in a dramatic way, by Thomas Taylor. It seems to be the first in a series of books, which is brilliant. Set in Erie-on-the-Sea, I think it is. Which is basically, Erie on the Sea. There's a map at the beginning. I love a map.
It's a very good map
It
as
is
well.
a fantastic map. And basically, it's kind of set now, I would, you know, but there's no specificness about it, if you know what I mean. There's no mention of kind of mobile phones or anything like that, but there are cars. So, you know, it could be any time, but it feels more now. And basically, the Grand Nautilus Hotel in this seaside village, there is a lost and founder. So Herbert Lemon works downstairs in the kind of lost property section of the hotel. He's sort of 11, 12, 13, and he basically documents all the lost stuff, is able to kind of pass them on if people come back for them, all that kind of stuff. And it is from the very beginning, it goes. So basically, at the beginning, he's in his wee cubbyhole, and a girl appears and says, "Help me, hide me," and he kind of does, because, you know, he's like, I don't know what's happening. And then a man comes in with a boat hook for a hand, Harry, and is searching for the girl, thinks she's in a suitcase, chops the suitcase up. The girl's not in there, thankfully. It's like straight away, you're writing a story. Straight away, you want to know, who is this girl? Why is this scary man chasing her? So Erie-on-the-Sea, I'll explain a wee bit of the background, is a seaside village. We love the seaside. There are seagulls as well, but this is set in winter, so we all know seaside towns as being somewhere we go in summer. You eat ice cream, seagulls eat your chips, you make you know, you go into sand, you make sand castles, and that kind of thing. But what happens in these places when it's winter, when it's out of season, when the mist and the fog is really heavy coming in from the sea, when it's really dark at night, all that kind of stuff. The place, I think itself, is called Cheery-on-the-Sea, but the sea has disappeared from the site of the sign. Basically, Erie-on-the-Sea sounds better. There's a touch of magic in it. The Malamander is a sea monster. Boathook Man is well over 100 years old. There's loads of stuff in this. It is just a rip-roaring adventure, and it's not a standalone book. I want more. I want to know what happens to Herbert. He's got a bit of a history. He's an orphan. You're not quite sure what. Violet, the girl, has a history. You want to know more. There's loads of other characters. My favourite character is in the book dispensary. So they have a book dispensary, which is a place where you go, and there is a giant mechanical ape monkey thing with a top hat, and you tell that monkey what, or I don't even know if you speak to the monkey or just say, can you give me a book? And it does something, and then out of its hat, it prints out like a run of numbers, and that means a book somewhere in this dispensary, and that is your book. You go and get that book, and you get to take that book away. But it's fantastic. So it's like, in my head, this big huge Victorian type
With the top
with
hat.
the top hat, and it's very creaky and cranky. And then Violet gets a book about the Malamander because basically she's searching for her parents. She wants to know what's happened to them. There's evil writers. There's the owner of the big hotel, who's quite a recluse, but she's got I can't remember what she called it, a I don't know.
The camera obscura thing?
It's kind of like that, but it works at night or something. So she can see the whole town, but there's certain bits that she can't see. So she's trying to recruit Herbie to find out what's happening in those bits that she can't see. So he's got like that happening in the background because he wants to keep his job. Violet telling him other stuff. There's like the kind of hotel manager almost that doesn't like him. He wants access to all this like lost property stuff. Herbie's like one for rules as well, so he knows that in his lost and foundery there's things that after 100 years old, if nobody collects them, he can do what he wants with them. So he doesn't really seem to get paid or paid very much, but if he wants to go out and get chips on the pier, he can look in the lost and foundery and find something that's not been claimed and can go with like, you know, a single earring and like half a pair of glasses, and the man in the chip shop will accept some of that as payment. I think because he's a kid as well. But just a fantastic world that was built up very, very quickly. And just it made me want to go to Seaside Town in the middle of winter to see what happens. But yes, there's a bit of magic happening. I imagine because I've done no research whatsoever, I imagine as the series goes on, we're going to find out more, because it seems that the Malamander isn't the only creature that might be out there. And although it's perceived as a monster, there's a story behind that as well. There's a bit of a magic egg thing going on.
Of course.
There's a huge, I don't know if you can see from the map, Pari, but there's a huge shipwreck out in the sea.
Ah, right.
The Leviathan. So that's a whole part of the story as well. Just a wonderful book, and again, written for kids, but not a kids feeling book, if you know what I mean. The characters are kids, but there's so many other adults in it that you want to know the story of as well. Just wonderful.
I feel like this has made you dance the most
Yes,
with
now that
joy.
I'm talking about
Yes.
it.
But you know what? You talking with so much passion about this book actually makes me want to recommend one of my nemesis books to you to see what you would think. Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundell had the same kind of, well, not the same, the similar kind of vibe to it. I think it was really badly done.
Okay.
I've talked about this in the podcast, but I feel like some of the elements that you described really liking, I think that's what a lot of other readers who loved the book, and there's a second book now out as well in that series, even though it's a standalone, it's set in the same world. And I think some of the things that you enjoyed in this book, you might find to enjoy in that book.
Okay. Is that also written for children? Or
It
is
is.
it
Yes,
okay.
it is written for children. It was
Oh,
one
I
I was
vaguely
deeply
remember.
betrayed by, because
Yeah.
I like one of her other books is one of my favorite books when I read it, and every other book I've read of her since has disappointed me because it's not been as good. But this was the only one that made me angry.
Oh.
But it could be that what is not for me could be for, like, it is definitely for someone else,
Yeah.
because a lot of people love that book and were very excited about the second book in the series.
It had a lovely cover, didn't
It did,
Yes.
it did. And it was set in a different kind of world. But also, if you hate it, then we can talk about how horrible it was.
Well,
but if you like it, you find another book to love.
Oh, exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to going on with this series, because I want to see like that if the second book holds up to the first book, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things, you know, that could be embellished on.
Yes.
But I don't know whether he's going to do that or whether it's just going to be, something else. But yes, maybe I will give.
I would never recommend. It's my other Nemesis book. I would not recommend to anybody.
No.
The Name of the Wind, Patrick Rathford. I'm talking about you.
And I did read a couple of pages of that. And
did you?
yeah, it's not for me either.
Oh, right. Okay, yes. But Impossible Creatures, I think I'm not as anti it. It's my baby Nemesis. It's not my main, like it's not whatever the video game, the final boss monster is. It's like one of the early baby ones.
Okay, that's it. Anyway, I'm intrigued about your other book, which is the only book from the cover that you can definitely say goes into our dancing theme.
So I actually picked it up just exactly for this reason. So now that it is sort of getting into autumn and winter, I wanted to set myself book projects, just like mini ones, not anything super big. And I accidentally seem to have started off with classics as my project. So Ballet Shoes, I've heard a lot about for years. It's a classic.
I've never heard of it before.
It's really popular amongst like children's book fans and things. It's a classic. There's others in the series. I think this one is a standalone, but then there's like theater shoes, tennis shoes, circus shoes. I'm assuming they are about different people because it would be very confusing if it wasn't. But maybe it is. I don't know. But so this is what the book starts off with. It starts off as it intends to go. That is really strange. So it starts off with Great Uncle Matthew. That's his name, but everyone calls him Gum because that's the initials that they stand for, and they think it's a more fun word to refer to him as Gum rather than Great Uncle Matthew. And he is a man who travels around the world and collects fossils. So he just likes going on adventures and collecting fossils from different parts. But then he needs a place to store all these fossils that he brings back. So he decides to like get this house in London not for himself because he's mostly out, but to store the fossils. And he has his niece and his great niece into like his nephew has died in like some way. So he gets them into the house as well, and they take care of the fossils while he's away. There's also a Nana who comes in to take care of the child, and periodically she'll say, "There's too many fossils in this house. I refuse to clean any. You have to get rid of them." And he donates it to the Natural History Museum just next door, and he's very grumpy about it all. But then once when he was away looking for fossils, the first time he's on a ship and there's a shipwreck, and I don't know, he's on one ship and the other ship there's a shipwreck, and he decides to like help with the rescue operations, goes out in a boat, and there's just everyone else is dead. There's just a baby surviving. So he decides to get the baby and get her back. When she comes back, everyone says, "We can't find out who this baby belongs to. Like, I think all her family is dead, so we'll have to give her to the orphanage." And he's like, "No, I found her. I'm gonna like, sort of take her." So he adds her to his fossil collection. So that's the first baby. Then another time he's away in Russia somewhere, and I think he finds a second baby. I don't remember how. Yeah, he's just a baby.
And babies. Okay.
So he gets this. So the first baby is called Pauline, and they're quite happy with Pauline. Oh, baby, yes. Oh, by that time, one of the women has died, and the niece has become like 16 or 17. So she's responsible for the fossils and now for the babies as well.
And that's quite a different set of.
Yeah, she's quite happy. She has Nana to help. So she was like, "Okay, that's fine. I guess I'll take care." And he has a lot of money. So, they work for wanting and stuff. Second baby comes from Russia. Again, lost all her parents, whatever. I was like, "Okay, will you take another baby on board?" "Yeah, sure, why not?" So this is the second baby. Then there's a third. But the Nana is now like, "This is too many. 2 is enough for my nursery. I don't want any more babies. If there are more babies, I'm going to walk out." But lo and behold, there's a third baby who is from like a like a dancer. The husband's died, and the wife, the mom, she can't afford to raise this baby by herself, so she pawns her off to Gum, and she comes with some ballet shoes, the titular ballet shoes with her because she's a dancer, I guess. She's like, "I can't give you myself, but I can give you some shoes." So these are the 3 girls. They're Pauline, Petrova, and Posey.
Okay.
Those are the three
Well
names.
done in remembering.
And they decide, yes, because they decide to take on a name. So when they start school, they're like, oh, we are not, we can't have the same surname as you because we're not. Like, we're together, but we want to make up our own name. And they decide Fossil. So Fossil, Fossil, because they were like, we were found as fossils. But now the problem is that just when the third baby was found, just after that, great uncle Matthew Ogum decides that he's to go on this really grand adventure, and he thinks it's going to take about 2 to 3 years.
Oh.
So he's like, I'm going to be gone for so long. So are you sure you're okay? And this Nana has not gone away. She falls in love with the third baby as well. She's like, okay, fine, but no more babies. So he's like, yeah, I won't have time for more babies. I'm going away on this big adventure. So I'll come back in 2 to 3 years, but I've made provisions for you for 5 years. So I've left enough money. So even if there's some delays, you'll have enough money. But it's 5 years come and go, no government sight.
Oh no.
And now all the money that they had, it's getting tight. So they have decided that they are going to they start a board. So the house, they get rid of some of the fossils because they're like, we need the space, and they decide to have boarders in instead. So they have some different kind of families. There's two sort of academics who come in, one in Shakespeare and one on mathematics, and both women, and they're very happy to come in and have a room. Another, so I think another dancer comes into one of the rooms. A couple comes into one of the rooms, and it's just a nice. They're quite happy. They're all quirky in their own way, and the book focuses on the three girls, and it's sort of shows you from when they were really young to when they grow up, and it focuses on a school that they all go to. It's a school of dancing and stage. So one of the girls, the youngest girl, Posey, the one who comes with the ballet shoes, is sort of a, what's the word, prodigy of a dancer, right from when she was young. The oldest child, Pauline, she is really good at acting. So they think that, this school would be really good, and they get it for free because they don't have money to give. And their idea is, at least the girls, not the adults, that once they turn 12, they can start earning money, because then they can get some permission from the London County Council, get a license, and get cast in plays and in ballets, and they can contribute to the upkeep of the house, which they really, because they've seen that it's all going downhill, so they want to help. And that's what it's about.
I like that they have a plan.
They have a plan. The adults are not, well, the main adult, Sylvia, she is not for having, she's like, no, it's my job to look after you and things. And then they're like, please calm down, we will help. So, and it's very much sort of very realistic, and they keep squabbling amongst each other. It's very sweet, it's very gentle, but also not sort of saccharine. It's not they're so good to each other always, they're always looking out. No, they keep fighting, they keep sort of, they're grumpy sometimes, they have they learn lessons and things in terms of they're horrible and they're brought down a peg or two. They make sure that Posey, the youngest, they know, the two older sisters know that she's really good at dancing, and she is definitely a prodigy, but she can't know that because it's our responsibility to keep her down so that she doesn't get too big a head. And it's just so it's little bits of that. It's how the different, even though they're boarders, how they sort of have a hand in bringing these girls up as well. So different kinds of families, not just, they're all a made up kind of family. None of them are related to each other by blood, but it's all how this community comes together and really helps each other. And I see why it's a classic for a reason, and it's so much easier. I'm glad I read this after Villette, because it's both are these old-timey books, but this not just because it's for children, but because you have characters to root for, because there's a narrative, and it's really nice. It's silly, and it's fun, and it's I would definitely read the other three because I like the tone of the books as well, where it's not it takes children seriously. It doesn't like talk down about them or to them. So, and I have 4 chapters left to go. I feel like I know what it's. I mean, I gave myself a spoiler because I was looking at the table of contents, but the last chapter is called Gum Comes Back.
Oh, right, okay.
But
That answers that
I
question.
feel like I knew that was going to happen because they keep sort of saying that, oh, he's gone and who knows when he's going to come back. And most of the adults are like, oh, he's never going to come back. He's gone. He's like, he went on this adventure and he's like perished.
Eaten by a crocodile.
Yeah, something like that, like an Amazon snake or wherever he was. But you know, as the reader, you know, like, oh, he's gone, but we know he's going to come back. So it's not like a big, but it's not really, he's just brought all of these people together. And there's also hints of other things going on as well. But it doesn't matter. It's just like a simple story, but really fun. You want to spend time in this world with these characters, and it's really lovely.
You're saying a simple story. That's an awful lot in a book, if you know what I mean. Like, you know.
Well, compared to Millet, is not the one.
Millet's like 4 times bigger.
That's true.
But I love a story like that, whether it's for an adult or whether it's for a kid, that there's loads in it that you get excited about.
Yes.
You want, you know.
Yes.
But the story itself
Yeah.
is a nice story.
Yes.
It kind of follows on.
And it's like, you know, all these characters as well. It's just, there's very definitive characters. Like there's the madame at the dance school who's the headmistress. She has like her own like sort of quirks and things. All these characters have their own things, but together it feels like a very old-fashioned story because it is, but not in like a derogatory way. It feels like a really lovely old-fashioned story that I think you would enjoy, Jenny.
Oh, I'm definitely going to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of other people would as well. So I'm going to rush through these 4 chapters.
So you can give
and
me
then you
afterwards,
can have it. Yeah.
Is it because I've never heard of it before at all? You know.
Yeah, it's. I think it's really easy for it to pass you by. I mean, a lot of the classics, unless they've come into your life either through school or you've heard about it, there's so many. There's so many books out there. So I think that might be a project of mine, using B as like one sort of like trying and reading books, because usually what we do is we try and fit our books into the theme. But I would like to read books, at least one book for the theme, because that's how I picked this up. Like otherwise I kept putting it off. Oh yes, I know this book exists. I'll read it someday. But I'm glad I read it for this episode because I'm really enjoying it.
I know what the next theme is, Pari. I'm not sure that's going to work for the next. I'm going to speak quite quickly about my other book. You're going to quite like this, I think.
Right. Okay. I've never heard of it.
So this was recommended to me by another member of staff, and we didn't have this in, so I asked very nicely our boss, and she brought in the 3. I don't know, because I've not went on to the next one yet, if it's the same characters, but it's definitely the same world.
Right.
And I adored it. You will like it because there's quite a lot of politics in it, like of different places. So it's a fantasy book. There is a map, which I absolutely love, and I kept referring
You got
back
2
to.
books with maps this time.
This is a slightly simpler map.
Yes.
Of the world.
Yeah.
There's also a cast list. Now, I will admit, when I saw the cast list, I thought this is not going to be for me. There's quite a lot of names on here, quite unusual names. There's different places. I'm not going to enjoy this. And at first, I felt as if, you know, I was just kind of, right, I'll read a couple of pages. But I very quickly got into it. So despite the fact that there are quite a lot of characters, they all seem to kind of, they've got their own story, but they all kind of come together. I did a tiny bit of research on this and discovered that I'm just going to call him Guy, has taken influence from Russia, from other places which I can't remember, but he's taken lots of these kind of influences and put them in this fantasy world. So the different cities, as it were, the different kind of places in it have all their own personality. So you can kind of, even if you didn't know, you know that they're all different. There's 2 moons, which is brilliant. So they're talking about the moons. There are different kind of religions happening. So one is all about the sun and daylight, and the other one is kind of more about the moon and the stars and things like that. So there's not too much, but there's kind of religious kind of growlings at each other. There are also like these big cities that want more land, so there's wars going on. But our set of characters are all quite young. They're all kind of, I don't think it ever tells you quite their age. And on screen, they would probably be 20. But in the book, as we know, just like Game of Thrones, the characters in there are a lot younger than they were on the screen. I've got a feeling the characters here are kind of 12, 13, 14, 15, that kind of age. Some of them are slightly older, but they're all kind of have their own story to tell, and I don't want to give too much away to you, Pari, so I'm trying to be very careful here. But one of them, she lives in this kind of village that is very well known for, they're not pirates as such, but they kind of raid the shipping channels.
And it sounds an awful lot like pirates to me. Oh, they're not pirates, they just go on, you know.
Kind of pirates. And she's kind of, her family have been all killed, and there's not dragons, there's not things like that, but there's a touch of kind of magic in it. And she hears her dead grandfather in her head, basically. He talks to her, he kind of guides her. He died, appeared in her head, and kind of guides her through things. Fortunately, she's able to turn him off when she's doing something.
That's quite a hand power to have. Just turn the voices in your head off.
But we're not quite sure why that's happened. And it's just one of those stories where lots of stories come together to make the big story, but you're very interested in the small stories that are happening around it. I want to have a conversation with you when you've read it, Pari, because I think that would be better. But I absolutely adored it. I loved the kind of hints at things as well. The kind of, so they're walking through a forest and there's like things on the floor that somebody picks up and then immediately puts down again. It's like a kind of, this isn't what it is, but say it was like a golden bird or something, and he knows that actually that should be left where it is. It's obviously a relic from the past. I love that we don't know anything about that. That might be in another book, I don't know, but it didn't matter. We just know that that character felt as if they had to put that back, otherwise they're going to be cursed or something. You know, there's kind of
like world building that feels lived in.
Absolutely, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to say, Pari. Thank you. You see, it's you translating for me, not me translating for you. It's that kind of absolute world building that is absolutely perfect in this. There's characters where you think that they're going somewhere and actually something happens and they go somewhere else, something else happens to them, and you think, oh, wait a minute, that's not where I thought you were going to go. And then it's like, oh, right, okay. But what I loved most about this book, because I'm going to finish off, is that the author finishes everything. So it's absolutely a standalone book. As I say, I don't need to read the other two set in this world. I'm going to, but it finishes everything off. So there's that kind of you know, he'll say something about one of the warriors, for example, you know, thinks that they're going to, you know, die, but he'll say, but actually, you know, 10 years later, he died in bed surrounded by his family. It's those kind of touches throughout the book, but especially at the end where he finishes everything off, that made this a joy to read. It absolutely, you know that you want these two characters to get together, and at the very end, he says, you know, this happened, and 10 years later, this happened. I love that because I like an ending. I like finishing off, whether it's happy or not. Not everybody gets a happy ending. At least you know the ending. And throughout it as well, there's kind of like mini chapters, maybe a couple of paragraphs, where he talks about, you know, 100 years ago or 100 years in the future. You know, this great, huge fortress that we, you know, are one of the places are trying to get into. You know, he kind of talks about that when there's nobody living there anymore and that kind of a thing. It's just as if the world is this size. You can't see that, sorry, but, you know, small. But actually the world goes on and has been going before we've arrived. Will keep going after we've left, kind of a thing. And, you know, there's no goodies and there's no baddies. You know, there is a war happening. and it's the kind of story where you pick your side. The author's not telling you which side to be on,
Right.
but you kind of pick your side. You meet the people who are in charge of this war and realise that perhaps they're not really in charge. This has happened out with their control, and it's just happening now, and it's going to happen one way or another, but it's always happened and will always happen, and therefore there's no control over it.
But that's interesting that, I like that about reading non-fiction history of our own world for exactly that reason that he seems to have done. I think that,
Yes.
Seems to have done in the fantastical world, that you get so caught up in your day-to-day, every day, that when you read about the sort of patterns and like overarching sort of not stories, but the things, events, people, places of the past, and you see how it's, you're just like a tiny little part of everything that's going on, and there's going to be so much of the world that's happened, there's going to be so much that's going to happen. It kind of gives you some sort of sense of perspective. In that, yes, oh my God, everything that's happening, especially now that we know everything, it's all terrible. It feels all terrible. But a lot of people in lots of different places have felt this, lots of different times have felt this, and yet look at where we are.
Exactly.
And there'll still be people with everyday joys and sorrows and just like everyday lives.
That's exactly what this is. That's exactly it's like there's this big, huge world that's happened for thousands of years, and he's just taken a small part of it, and that's the story that you're on at that moment.
Yeah.
You know that this person here, has had a life before this. This person here is going to have something happening after this. That there are these relics from hundreds of years ago, which we don't know anything about. But 100 years ago, that probably made sense.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely adored it. I can't recommend it to fantasy readers enough. Because, and I've just read there very quickly, Croatia is another place that he kind of got influence from. And because it's a fantasy book, and we all know fantasy books do kind of draw from, we kind of know Game of Thrones, dragons, that kind of thing. We kind of know wizards. We kind of know all these separate things, but they are all influenced by other things, if that makes sense. You can see that he has been influenced by different things, and he's brought all those cultures into this world to show that basically everywhere has all these different cultures, all trying to kind of find their place in the world. And but again, 100 years ago nobody'd heard of this, and in 100 years time nobody's going to care. It's absolutely wonderful. Plus the cover's quite pretty.
It is really nice. And I also feel like that's really empathetic to not just these fictional characters, but just even in your day-to-day life. Like, you might just like pass by somebody, or have like a really not nice encounter with somebody perhaps, and you make obviously all these assumptions about this person, but actually they have this deep inner life and all these other things that you were but a glimpse in their world as well. So it's more sort of opens you up, I think, to like knowing, or at least being curious about other people's stories as well. So as much as I said Villette was like a very difficult book, I really enjoyed that part of it as well. And I think I would really recommend that part where you're really in a character's head in the way that it is possible to be only through like art or literature or whatever, because otherwise the only head that inside out is yours.
Exactly.
So even though she keeps hiding things from us, you find out how she views the world, and that makes you, I think, more empathetic. And just like the way that you were saying that Guy does in this, we've just made him a first name.
He's a trend now.
Person he is. That I think, I love that. And in all these books, I think, I think adventure stories are more plot driven, but I think character driven stories have that sense of getting to know somebody, even if you wouldn't have ever encountered.
Yes.
So what about the next?
So as I say, I'm quite interested to see how you're going to do this. So as you know, Pari, I am at the moment carless and having to get public transport. And
I am a big public transport fan.
You are.
Even though I say you only hear the bad stories.
We definitely only hear the bad
Because
stories.
otherwise, usually it's lovely and it's nice. So I wouldn't say those things, but maybe I need to big up public transport more.
Absolutely, maybe. But I was betrayed
Oh,
yesterday.
for you.
But in a good way,
Oh,
which doesn't make sense, but I shall tell you the full
Yes.
story. Anyway, so B has decided to give us our next theme is transport.
oh, I love it. I get to pick up public transport. You don't know this about me because it's a very weird thing not to know or to know about somebody. I love public transport.
Okay.
I think public transport is the future that we all should
I agree
aspire
if
to.
they make it better.
Yes, I am used to good public transport in my defense. But yes, so I'm actually very excited
I'm
about
curious
this
though,
thing.
because you said you were going to try and fit classics into that.
Oh, or
Or at least a book.
a
that-
book. Yes, I'm sure I can find a book, but now if it's a classic book, okay. Let's see what I find. But I'm very excited.
Yes, I know that next time you come in with something completely
Completely
different to
No.
totally modern stories
Yeah.
about.
Your project has not worked. It
Yeah.
worked for all of 2 weeks. Well, thank you so much for listening to a very long episode.
Yes.
And we'll see you again next time.
Bye.